Welcome back to episode 4. I'm just going to be claiming here all of my things from the foundry and checking out what I can upgrade on my Warframe, and this also allows you to see where I am at the game right now and what progressions I've made. So today's episode is going to focus primarily on story progression. We're going to do the second Dream Quest and the War Within quest. In order to be able to do the War Within quest, we'll have to also complete the Railjack quest. As you've probably noticed, a lot of things are starting to require credits, especially as the game opens up and we start doing a lot of different standings for rank ups. I also highly recommend that you finish the quest Glassed Gambit. That will unlock the index game modes, which will essentially give you infinite money. The only problem we'll have right now with the index is that we don't have Revenant, and Revenant is essentially easy mode for the index. So do be very careful with that and don't carry too many points, but we'll talk about it when it comes around. Also, the cadence of the videos will probably slow down from this point on. There's a lot of standing grind going on behind the scenes, and the progression between the quests is not as often. I will, of course, try and record all the interesting bits and introduce you to all the different grinds that I'm doing. And on the side, I'll try and release smaller content that introduces you to things like the corrupted key runs, and also for more beginner players, maybe do something like the Argon Crystal runs for the Void. Since those are relatively simple videos, they'll most likely come out in short form content. If you've been following this series along, this is just a normal new road run that I do. You should get familiar with a lot of these routes and runs at this point, and whenever you're lacking materials, just do the things that we've already spoke about in these videos. So I finally found some amber stars. I'm going to slot them into the Iaton sculptures. This is finally the point in the game where we start getting consistent endo from different sources, primarily from the Deimos bounties and doing Elite Sanctuary Onslaught to level up your weapons. So for now, those will be our best sources of acquiring endo whenever you need it. So as I've talked about before, we're going to be building the Vectis rifle. The Vectis rifle is a nice sniper rifle that we'll be using for Eidolons as our primary weapon for a long time. There are a few reasons for that. It has competitive damage with all the other weapons that are normally used for Eidolons. Its main advantage is that it has only one ammo in the magazine, and while at first that might seem like a downside for us, that's actually an upside, especially because we'll be getting the corrupted mod critical delay, which reduces our fire speed. But since we only have one ammo in the magazine, our fire speed is essentially our reload speed. So we'll instead be using different mods like Radiated Reload, which we'll most likely buy from another player, due to the fact that it's unlocked significantly later in the game and we simply don't have access to it right now. But for that we'd have to trade some plats, and I'll most likely make a video on a few methods to acquire early game plat. As you can see here in the background, I'm doing the second Dream Quest. It is one of the main story quests. You'll finally get some light on who you are and what it is that we're actually playing, and we'll soon be unlocking a lot of different game features. If you are not following this series along and you're just watching these videos to get a feel for how Warframe is in the early game, we'll let a portion of this quest play on here in the video just so you get to experience that part of it. Keep in mind that the videos are cut quite heavily and you don't get to experience the entire thing for yourself through these videos.
I know we are desperate, Executor, but these aren't Dark Soldiers. These are golems possessed by devil minds.
dream, not of what you are, but of what you want to be.
You hesitate, Shadow, but remember your despair. This is your only chance to make it end. Your hatred is too weak, Shadow. Mine is strong. My fragments will finish this.
One more time.
Shadow, your path is clear. No self, no sense, no death. Just a metal puppet dangling on Tenno's strings. Only the Tenno's death will end your despair. All your dread-long life, you've waited for this moment. But you're asking yourself, was I one of these wretched things? You know the answer. You still hate them. You still hate yourself. What is this? Shadow. Protect me.
Now we fight on two fronts, my child. The war without, and the war within.
I hope you enjoyed that little section of the story and it's enticed you to play the game if you're just watching along. As you can see here, I have my Mastery 4 coming up, so I'm going to quickly finish that. Keep in mind, with every single Mastery level early on, you're getting a lot more standing daily that you can get for all the different things that we're grinding. Also, with every new MR level, you're unlocking new weapons that you can level, and therefore a lot more mastery and versatility and possibilities of weapons that you can try out. Additionally, in the very early game, a lot of the bounties on Deimos and Fortuna are locked behind mastery, so we'll soon be reaching the point where we can do all of them, which is, I believe, around MR5 or 6. So here I am just unlocking the Pluto Junction, as you can see. Soon we'll be doing the Deadlock Protocol quest. This is both to unlock Protea later on, which is a very powerful frame that will allow us to do a lot of the game quite easily. Alongside Mag, of course. The other frames that we'll be focusing on are Mirage and Revenant, all serving their different purposes. Additionally, from the Deadlock Protocol, you will be getting a weapon called Zoris, which will be our primary melee weapon for a very long time. As you can see here, the next junction, being the Sedna junction, will give us the next story quest called War Within, which will progress our further systems with the operator. Additionally, we get the Hidden Messages quest, which is the quest to unlock Mirage, which we'll be focusing on as soon as we can. Mirage is one of the very few frames in the game for who you get all the parts for from the quest, so it'll be very quick to put her to craft off the get-go. She specializes in doing damage, which will be very useful for us when we require that, such as doing boss fights like Eidolon and Profit Taker later on. Just showing here real quick that I was lucky enough to get the Scorch mod from doing a spy mission.
7 for 7 against. Cast and recast 7 times. So, it is decided. The fleet has been retrofitted and redeployed to begin at once. New lanes. Trawling for old things. By prophet and void, by the blessed handless founder, we hereby invoke the Deadlock Protocol.
So this is after acquiring Azores during the quest. We're now finally going to mod it. One thing to note about Zoris is that we'll primarily be using it for heavy attacks, just like all the other melee weapons. The thing to actually understand here is that the glaive, when thrown, can be detonated mid-air by pressing the middle mouse button, and it is precisely that explosion that is considered a heavy attack. And if you want, you can actually make the glaive hit your opponent first, and then detonate it on the way back when they're inside the explosion radius. So now we'll have a pseudo-ranged weapon that does a lot of damage, but is also considered a melee weapon, and we can scale with heavy damage. For now, we'll be putting the Toxin mod on it, that is slightly disadvantageous because the weapon naturally does electric damage. It'll combine with the electric damage into corrosive damage, which is not very useful for us at this point in the game. We would actually much prefer the pure Toxin, but unfortunately we don't really have the space nor the mods to fix it at the moment. You'll also see that I have a lot of capacity available here. As soon as I acquired the weapon, I put a reactor into it. The other weapons that we'll be putting reactors into are Vectis and Spore Lacer.
For tomorrow our struggle continues. We will persevere. Know that.
So here you'll see that I'm going to trade one of my clannies for the Augment mod that I require for the mag. It's true that we picked New Loka for the purpose of actually acquiring this mod amongst other mods that come from there. However, it's a very useful mod, and since I already dropped Glaved Prime part, which is worth about 15 to 20 plat, here I decided to simply exchange it to him for the Augment mod. One thing of note, D made it so that the 50 initial plat that you get when you start out is untradeable, which did not used to be the case, and you used to be able to get some different things with it, like a primed Warframe. However, that is no longer the case, so you may feel free to spend it on something like Warframe slots. Now we'll be doing the Rising Tide quest to unlock our Railjack. This quest requires a lot of different materials, and while you should already have most of them, in my case I was lacking the neural sensors, which you can acquire from the Alad V boss fight on Jupiter.
Must rebuild to contain that threat. We will reconstruct an old war era Sigma series railjack. A railjack requires a viable command cephalon. The Orcan Empire's best hope. We were.
The VIP that we're hunting is here. Find them and take them out. The Zanuka prototype has made Alad V a very dangerous man. If he is allowed to carry out his plans, no Tenno in the system will be safe.
You have loyalty issues, Tenno, my Zanuka prototype. We'll fix that for you. Oh, if it's your friends you're looking for, you're welcome to place a bid for my newest Zanuka prototype.
Alad V sees the power of the Tenno and thinks he can take it for himself. That power is sacred. This blasphemy must end now.
Oh, I've been looking all over for you, Tenno. Come, let me show you my new venture. I think you... Oh, have you come to make a donation to my newest enterprise? Excellent. Please report to my lab for reconstruction.
Target down. Assassination contract complete. Great work, Tenno. There is the assassination target. You know what to do. Corpus walkers are heading to your location. Target down. Assassination contract complete. Great.
One thing of note about this music puzzle here on Lua, you actually have a small chance to get a fully completed forma upon completion of the puzzle from the container. So you could try and farm it that way if you ever need formas and you really don't have any access to it any other way.
You have a railjack. Tenno, all records of my mission have been purged from the weave. Why, I do not know. I had a crew. I must accept sole responsibility for their deaths. Conclusion, I am non-viable. But I am the only railjack-compatible cephalon. The sentients have almost rebuilt. Conclusion, I am, under the circumstances, a viable command cephalon. If you will have me.
So here I am doing the Sedna Junction, and right after this I'll be doing the quest War Within, and then we'll pretty much have accomplished all our different goals with this video. As I said before, due to the change in the cadence of the videos, tomorrow I'll be grinding for standing, and then the day after that I'll be recording for the new episode.
I'm afraid, sister. Your continuity grows near.
Hush, worm. Let the beasts do their work.
But the dreamers have awakened. They will come for us.
Yes, they will. Like the answer to a prayer.
So, having finished the War Within quest, we now have full access to our operator alongside the schools. Normally it is recommended to start with the Zeneric school, though I've personally chosen the Madurai school, simply due to the fact that it's going to vastly amplify our amp damage, which will be useful when we'll be doing the Eidolons. You will also be able to summon your operator in missions now on demand, which is incredibly useful because you can avoid oncoming damage, revive allies in Void Out, and traverse the map very quickly with Void Sling. There is also a number of very useful arcanes for the operator that we'll be focusing on, such as Magus Elevate, which will restore HP to your Warframe every single time you go into your operator and go back to your Warframe, essentially providing you infinite health restoration on demand. Here I'm also going to slot the Madurai lens into the Zoris instead of the mag, simply because the chances are we'll be using the Zoris more often due to the fact that we're going to be changing our frames between Mirage and Revenant, and eventually Protea. This is also where the game does its introduction to Kuva Liches. Kuva Liches are essentially a challenging boss fight that you can willingly opt into. I highly advise against it at this point in the game. It is simply too much for us to tackle with everything else going on, and would simply be adding unnecessary complexity to already a pretty heavy schedule of grinding, standing, and progressing through the game. So since we have access to our operator now, this is a good opportunity to introduce you to all the different shops that only the operators have access to. The most important one to us right now is the Quill Onco. The Quills will sell you an upgraded amp and will also sell you the Magus Elevate mod that I was talking about earlier. It is our primary goal right now throughout the entire early game to focus specifically on these two things, which are acquiring a new amp that actually does damage unlike the amp that you started out with, maxing out the Quill standing, and subsequently getting Magus Elevate to rank 5. After which we can focus on the Fortuna Little Duck, which serves a very similar purpose and will provide us with an upgraded brace for our amp, which gives it more critical chance. At which point you can craft yourself a new amp, either with the parts that you're already used to, except the Certus brace, or you can try out a different primary fire and secondary fire to your heart's content. You can easily find recommendations for this online. Personally, I use a 7x7 on my main account, that is, which stands for Clamora. X stands for anything that you desire, which would be on the secondary, and 7 stands for Certus brace. However, we don't need to worry about Fortuna at this very moment, and the amp we'll be focusing on right now is a simple Schwalk amp with a secondary that you prefer and a Lauren brace. The reason why Schwalk amp stands above the rest at this point in time is because it fires a shotgun-like projectile that penetrates all things that it hits, allowing you to hit multiple Eidolon limbs at the same time when fired from underneath them. You should also pay extra attention to when nighttime rolls around on Cetus now. You can easily do that through Warframe Hub website, for example. You can even set a sound alert to occur whenever night rolls around, and then simply have the website active in the background. The website also allows you to track a lot of different things like rotations for bounties and currently active alerts. The thing that we want to be doing during nighttime is hunting for Vumbalists. First, you destroy their corporeal form with any weapon, and then you destroy their incorporeal form when they're voided out with your operator. They will drop an intact sentient core, which you will then turn into Quill Onco for standing. The alternative method of progression here would be to join your clan on Eidolon hunts, which would allow you to get plenty of sentient cores and shards. I will not be going into how to clear the Eidolons at this very video. Maybe at some later date I will make a separate video that talks about how to fight and solo Eidolons, or what you need to do as a part of a group when doing Eidolon hunts. So here's the little duck shop. This is the shop we'll be focusing on after we finish the Quill Onco shop. Just like the Quill Onco shop, there's a lot of very useful things and different primary weapons and secondary weapons for your amp. The most important thing that we'll be focusing on here is this Certus brace. I also highly recommend the Magus Lockdown Arcane. It essentially stuns surrounding enemies whenever you perform a Void Sling. The main way to acquire standing for the little duck is to acquire toroids, which can drop in 3 different locations: the Temple of Profit, the Spaceport, and the Enrichment Lab. Here I'm going to show you a sped up run of trying to get some toroids. The general concept is quite simple. You pick one of the 3 locations, you're going to stack your alert level all the way to the maximum, and you're going to fight the enemies, preferably in an enclosed area where you're not bound to take a lot of damage, for as long as you can handle, and try and drop as many toroids as possible. You will then turn them into the little duck and upgrade your standing. In the next video, we'll focus on the Chains of Harrow, Apostasy Prologue, and the Sacrifice quests, while also starting to progress towards unlocking every single map node or star chart node, which will unlock us Steel Path. Steel Path is essentially a hard mode version of the normal star chart, where you get extra resource drops at the cost of enemies starting out at a much higher level. One of the primary reasons for why we want to do that actually is to unlock the circuit through the Viri paradox, so that we can start working on our Incarnate weapons in tandem with the story. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe and comment on the video and share it with your friends. Hope to see you in the next episode and have a good day.